Can we still talk, Phoebe, before we go live? Or okay, okay.
Yeah, we're Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Venus and Mercury League. We are the VML casters of the evening. I'm Amy the Amazonian, here with Skybilz, here to bring you week 6 of 7 Swiss round robins. Are you ready for some magic, Skybilz?
Absolutely. We have many diverse matches today, and I cannot wait to get to them. But first, I believe we have a few things to cover before we get there.
Yes, we do. I would like to introduce what the VML is. The VML is a wonderful league showcasing some of the best players and decks that you might not otherwise get to see. I'm actually incredibly excited about some of the matches that we have lined up today. We're going to be seeing Zabricus, Ruchu, Sonic Pika, Jen Krot, Alias V, Ink Fathom, Anna, and Hogpog. That is a showdown that you're not going to want to miss. Also, the VML is sponsored by Energy Series and Wizards of the Coast. We're also sponsored in part by Channel Fireball. Thank you to everybody who makes this possible. So, if you are a first-time watcher and maybe you haven't seen the rounds before this is, as I mentioned, week 6. This is 8 different classes because of Strixhaven, of course, who are duking it out to take these top 8 spots and earn some wild card slots for an end of round tournament. It's going to be phenomenal. That's going to be the college clash there because each student is also representing a school. That's right. There's different colleges associated with Strixhaven, and every student has chosen one, and they could win some additional prizes, not just part of the $3,500 prize pool that's in the running. First place, that's what you want to get. That's the best of the best. Second place, some sweet stuff going there. But top 8, all of top 8 is actually going to be getting a qualifier weekend spot from Wizards of the Coast. And the top spot is getting a Magic Esports qualification. I believe that means that these people are going to see the biggest and the best tournaments of the year. Skybilz, are you hype?
Oh, absolutely. That's my best part. I'm always rooting for the person who wins the VML. So please, let's crown a champion and let's see what y'all got.
Yeah, I think that now is a great time for us to check out the College Clash slides. Let's go. So as you can see here, these players have been the best players, and I see a familiar name there. The Skybilz, one of the best of the best, repping Silver Quilt. I mentioned before that the top person repping each school does get a qualifying extra prize, which is pretty sick. You're gonna have to take home a couple wins though in order to take down Shadow Cloak and Silver Quill.
Yeah, a little bit of a road there, but you know what? I'm just proud to be up there repping Silver Quill. But as always, especially while I'm in the casting chair, I am not going to show any partiality, even though Silver Quill is clearly the best school in Strixhaven.
So you're telling me that if we do have an opportunity to root for, say, somebody else in Silver Quill, you are still willing and able to root for them?
I might, again, going to be a professional caster, but I might be rooting for them a little bit within. I'm very excited to see these colleges clash at one another, and look at how close this race is, Amy.
I mean, this is crazy. And also seeing 2 5-0 spots in Quandrix, I feel like the math nerds kind of have something going on here. Samantha Murphy, Rebecca Black, and Sky sitting there with a 5-0, 5-0, and 4-1 record going into week 6. Like, that's 2 undefeated players in one school.
Yeah, I think something's up with Quandrix. It's always been a tough school to go against when you're unlimited. No surprise here that the math nerds are doing very well so far.
Yeah, do you have like a feeling that maybe they're blue players as well? Just a guess.
Blue's one of the colors. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. And of course, as we all know, let's think about some of those Simic cards, right? That's been released over the past couple of years. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, some of them have been so good that they've had to be removed from the game permanently. Looking at you, Oko.
Looking at you, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath.
I love that there's more than one. And you know what? Omnath gets a special, like, star of participation because, hey, there's some blue and some green in those 4 colors. So how about we look at the metagame for the week?
All right, let's go.
Oh, and it's a surprise to nobody that Sultimatum, the Sultai Ultimatum deck, which casts Emergent Ultimatum as its win con, is very, very popular. Skybilz, do you have a favorite deck from among these?
Well, still in the dark side over here, always going for rogues. Big fan. A lot of different win conditions. Will you win because of aggro and flying, or will you win because of the mill? I'm always going to be pulling for rogues in the current meta.
Ooh, that is absolutely true. It's hitting on multiple fronts. It's like the aggro tribal mill deck. How did all 3 of those things end up as the same thing? And I see that Blue Red Dragons is tied with rogues in its showing here with 6 players running each. And I really like that Blue Red Dragons deck. I think that it's a mid-range kind of flashy powerhouse that actually does use treasure synergy as one of its like main pieces. You've got Prismari, you've got wow. It's just it's kind of impressive how all those cards came together. There's also this strange thing where dwarves and vehicles have also played into the vehicle or into the treasure space. We don't usually see it in the blue-red dragon deck, but it just makes me so happy to know that dragons are getting along with dwarves in this day and age. So Naya Adventures also making a big showing here. It turns out that if you take an aggressive adventure deck, you've got the value from the innkeeper, and you add a showdown at a Scalds, you're getting even better. And Skybilz, how do you feel about these decks in the 5 deck slot? We've got red, green, aggro, sacrifice, and mono red.
Well, I'll tell y'all something. Gruul and mono red, they're not going away. As a matter of fact, once rotation comes, those tend to be the strongest decks, the aggro decks right out of the gate. So if they're still persisting right now as we're entering super standard, right? We only have 1 more set left to release before rotation happens. The fact that Gruul and mono red still have a presence with juggernauts such as rogues, such as Sultimatum, I can't wait to see what happens come rotation. But as for right now, watch out for Elder Gargaroth in Gruul especially.
Oh, yeah, that's the 5-mana 6/6 that can do it all. Draw a card, gain you life, make a beast, and it's got trample, reach, and vigilance. And that's secret reach, by the way. Nothing about the card would make you think it has reach until you attack into it with a dragon and suddenly it's dead.
It only has 1 kryptonite. It's called Heartless Act. If you don't have it right away, you might just regret it.
I remember it was only about a year ago where playing a card that doesn't do something on Enter the Battlefield, that's nonsense. Who would ever do such a... Oh, Elder Gargaroth is playable now. It's not just playable, it's great. It's like one of the top sideboard cards for the Sultai Ultimatum decks too, because, hey, they're playing green, you may as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. So again, we need to look at cards like Elder Gargaroth. If you're going to come out, you're not going to have haste, you better have some good effects. So that is something we'll certainly keep an eye on going forward.
Yes, and as Nefet mentioned, Gargaroth attack, Gargaroth protect. Gargaroth also kind of mess with the stack, because when those abilities go on the stack, sometimes you're just like, oh no, I had an edict effect, but oh, I have to put it on right now before they make a beast. I've definitely run into that before. And, ooh, all of these standard decks have got me aching for some magic, so I think we should take a look at the first matchup. So our first competitor is Zabricus. You've probably seen her streaming before because she's one of the biggest and the best, and she's great. And I'm super excited to see her play in this first game. Now, she is playing the meta deck, Sultai Ultimatum. But why is she running it? It appears that she has maybe actually tried to evaluate the meta of the tournament and thought, VML, I know what I'm doing. It's time for an ultimatum.
Absolutely. Ultimatum is one of those cards where it single-handedly ends the game. And then not only is Ultimatum powerful, you can actually draw the answers of Ultimatum. And because of the ramp nature of this deck and the ability to control the field, those big threats are still relevant regardless of whether or not the Ultimatum casts it.
Yes, and there's also a fun trivia fact here. While most players allied themselves with one of the colleges of Strixhaven, Zabricus is representing the Auric. That would be the, I'll just go ahead and say, villainous group of masked individuals who look to take down Strixhaven. Zabricus, are you the monster?
That is certainly something we're going to take a look at. I mean, I still wonder where the wedges and the shards even make a play here in terms of where they are in the canon of Strixhaven. So where does Sultai lie in that? And is it part of the Auric?
Ooh, so let's take a look at the other competitor for this first round. Oh, it is Ellie! Hey, Ellie! Representing Silver Quill in the... Ooh, what's this? Rakdos Sacrifice in my standard? It's more likely than you'd think. So this is definitely an outlier among many of the metas we've seen so far, but it turns out that a lot of the pieces of the Sacrifice mid-range deck never left standard, and you may as well play them because they're great. Woe Strider, Rankle, and of course, Cruxa.
Yeah, big fan of Rankle. Again, as Amy said before, if you are going to drop something of that much mana value, it better do a lot and then quickly. Rankle definitely is going to be a card to watch out for, in addition to the ones already listed, the obvious Croxa, and of course, that Claim the Firstborn that just rips our lovely Bone Crushers and Love Struck Beasts, or any other creature so early, mono white, it can grab a Hallowblade and make quick work of it. Do not underestimate it. Maybe not as important in this matchup because it is a more control matchup, but I can understand why this meta deck was chosen because it is an answer to so many of the creature decks. And as we know, the format is not all Sultai Ultimatum, so it makes sense to bring in such an outlier of a deck. I really like this one.
Yeah, the biggest downside, I think, of this deck is those 4 main deck Claim the Firstborns. Yeah, they're real pretty. I see them in the deck list right there. Those are the alternate arts from the Mystical Archives. But they're not going to have that many targets in this matchup. Unfortunately, Cura Best the Sea Gods token does have hexproof, so you're not going to be stealing any 8/8s today.
So, Amy, what are you thinking is going to be the biggest card to determine this game in this matchup? Which one is going to be the one other than the Ultimatum? We'll rule that one out because we already know that that's a game winner.
I feel like getting early discard, forcing the Sultai deck to get behind and stay behind with these Cruxa triggers, with Rankle, is going to be the best way for this deck to win. But, I mean, this deck is very, very susceptible to exiling. Oh no, that would be awful if, say, the board was wiped and every single creature that had a CMC of 3 or less were exiled from the board and the graveyard. Shadow's Verdict, a real threat against this deck, and I think that it's time for us to get right into the action with Game 1.
All right, so let's take a look at the opener here. We have Jawari Disruption, Shadow's Verdict,
Cultivate. The Shadow's Verdict and the Cultivate. So you can see this is a bit of a budget build here. Zabricus is running these campuses over, say, a pure Scryland, but hey, you know what? It works. It generates both colors of mana, and it's actually a pretty solid 2-color land.
I'll say it before and I'll say it again. Those are my favorite common lands that I've ever seen. Now, granted, I don't have knowledge as far back, but that Witherbloom campus looks really good later on when you needed to do something. And what are you really doing turn 1 anyways in Sultai Ultimatum?
Not too much, but Zabricus actually does have a play here that could help her stay ahead. That Jawari Disruption as a counterspell that only needs 1 mana to be paid to stop it, but when you were trying to play on the curve, there it goes. And Ruchu not landing a Mire Triton to go straight to the graveyard. And now Zabricus has the mana for a Cultivate. hitting that cultivate means that there's going to be Shadow Verdict mana at the ready, and also ramping up just in time for Onyx and the ultimatum.
Yeah, and this one's not a given either. So you have to assess if you're in the Rakdos position, that Shadow's Verdict can happen at any time. So you have to make sure to kind of stagger your threats, right? And if you're in the Sultai part of the board, you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, I need to pick and choose when to cast this verdict because it doesn't look like as much relief is on the way.
Yeah, the verdict is probably the sort of thing that needs to be held until there's something in the graveyard that needs to be hit before it escapes. Something like Woestrider, something like Cruxa. And, ooh, here comes the Quandrix Cultivator, a new addition to this deck, who's able to grab a forest or a island. Only basics, though. It's not like those beautiful bindings that can grab any kind of forest. But, by the way, speaking about that campus, the Witherbloom campus, I just added one of them to my lands deck. I have a lands Lord Windgrace deck, and that thing did some work. I was sitting on way too much mana, and I was just like, oh, yeah, easy. I'll just tap 5 lands and scry. I've got, what, 20 lands on a battlefield?
Wanted to bring up one point here while we are briefly in the tank. Look at the amount of Strixhaven cards on the field and in Zabricus's hand. Oh my gosh. We have a campus, we have the cultivator, and we have Professor Onyx. This may be some of the most Strixhaven I've seen in Standard in a while. Just something to think about here. It's pretty cool to see.
Yes, and then on Virtue, on Ellie's side of the board, what is that? It says Castle Locktwain. Bone Crusher Giant. Oh, the ever villainous Eldraine. I've heard calls to request that Eldraine rotate early just because of its sheer dominance in Standard.
Yeah, so we're in the tank for a little bit here. This is a pretty tough play. So again, we have a Mana Cost 4, as Amy was talking about earlier. Claim the Firstborn can't take it, so you can't claim it and then sacrifice it.
And there's a Valky. Valky is important here because he is going to give a bit of knowledge about Zabricus's hand. When it enters the battlefield, it exiles up to 1 creature from your opponent's hand, but when there's no creatures to be exiled, it just sits there like a 2/1. But a glimpse of that Shadow's Verdict is very important. Knowledge that your board can be wiped at any time is huge. And also, with that land drop, that was a good draw right there. It's time for an Emergent Ultimatum, grabbing 3 powerful spells. It might even be Valky on the other side. Who is on the other side? Tybalt. That's a 2-sided card. Tybalt pretending to be Valky. But it looks like it's going to be an extra turn, a Mighty Best the Sea Gods, and what's the third choice? Maybe a Vorinclex? Seriously, Zabricus is so far ahead here. I feel like she could do kind of anything. Just like, yep, all these cards are good. Gonna force my opponent to deal with it. Oh, and it is going to be Valky, Alrund's Epiphany, and Professor Onyx. That's Liliana.
We don't know it's Liliana unless we actually look at the card, to be fair.
It says it right there. Liliana, which for some reason she just keeps changing her name. And it appears that Ellie has chosen to throw back Alrund's Epiphany. So there'll be no extra turns here, but there will be 2 powerful planeswalkers hitting the board. Tybalt able to exile a creature, and Professor Onyx able to force the sacrifice of 1. Because both these cards cost the same, that gives the choice between which creature gets sacrificed to that ability. And it looks like Tybalt going to the graveyard and Mire Triton being exiled.
This is the kind of thing where if you're in Virtue's position, you think, oh my gosh, why is Elder Spell still not in Standard? I thought we did away with all of those pesky planeswalkers when War rotated.
What is with all of these cards that are like, oh, I destroy all creatures, but I don't destroy all planeswalkers? They're creatures too. That's a person. Oh, and here comes Rankle, putting that haste to good use and just knocking Tybalt off the battlefield. Oh my god, Rankle is so great. Unfortunately, Rankle does not get its triggered ability when it hits a planeswalker. It has to make contact with the face in order to force a sacrifice or discard or draw a card. But here we're seeing a handy Heartless Act to take out Rankle.
Yeah, and speaking of Word of the Spark, is that a passive ability we just saw from Liliana? Of course, whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery, you have that drain ability, -2 life, +2 life. So again, you thought passive abilities were gone. Well, here they are once more.
A lovely time for a few passive abilities. And, ooh, we're seeing the Akroan War here, taking that Cultivator. Interestingly, Zabricus did leave mana up last turn. Could have played that Mire Triton and chose not to. And now we're going to see a plus from Professor Onyx getting another Sultai Ultimatum in hand.
Yeah, that was absolutely harsh, but that is the power of Professor Onyx again, just being able to find those ultimatums in the deck where previously we could not.
And Rushu just saying, no, I'm good, and getting out of this game. So we're going to be going to game 2. As you might have thought, having those Extinction events and Shadow's Verdicts puts Zabricus at a huge advantage in this matchup. When most of the deck gets hit by it, it's like everything but Rankle for the most part. She is going to be taking that first win pretty handily, but there's another game to go, maybe 2. Will it be turned around? Will Ruchu get the win?
So one of the cards to watch here in the sideboard. So Amy and I had previously stated that Claim the Firstborn doesn't have that many targets in Sultai. However, Duress, on the other hand, our good friend Duress, if you're trying to play something that's aggro with black involved in it, Duress is going to be the card here to discard those ultimatums and stop those threats before they begin. Another way for Duress to be highly effective is to take those cultivates out, right? You stop them from ramping faster. So we're going to see if Duress can play a factor here post-board for Ruchu.
And waiting for the opponent to finish up some sideboarding here. There's a lot of hard decisions that need to be made. And as you mentioned, like this is a deck that needs to make use of its sideboard, get rid of those Claim the Firstborns in order to win this game. And really, that's important. Having a flexible sideboard when you have such a diverse meta as what the VML is bringing.
All right, so we're looking at the opener again from the Sultai perspective here. Got Omen of the Sea, a really nice bridge at the beginning. Not quite the nice ramp that we had scheduled at the beginning of the first one, but still pretty good. Omen can seek that ramp.
Yeah, and there's that 1, 2, 3 punch. You've got Omen of the Sea, scrying, looking forward to the next turn. You've got Elspeth's Nightmare. Hey, did you play a little creature like a, I don't know, Mire Triton? Let me just get that in the graveyard. And look, Mire Triton's even putting even more things in the graveyard. And Elspeth's Nightmare is able to then exile the graveyard after taking a peek at the hand and forcing the discard of a non-creature spell.
Yes, Elspeth's Nightmare, very clearly the nightmare for any graveyard-relevant deck, but especially against this Rakdos build, because again, all the Rakdos creatures are tiny, besides maybe Kroxa, and of course Rankle. So we're going to see how the Nightmare plays a factor and what is perhaps taken out of the Rakdos hand as well.
Yeah, knowing what your opponent's handed is huge here, especially with such great reactive spells like Eat to Extinction, Heartless Act. Zabricus is in a great spot here, and she's probably content to just chill.
I did notice a card was brought on, I believe. That is an Eat to Extinction. That was a very awesome card on behalf of Zabricus picking, because again, that will get rid of the Kroxa before it causes more problems, should this Nightmare not work as intended.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even noticing. I thought that was an Extinction event. No, that is Eat to Extinction. Yum yum, time to exile a card and do a little bit of surveilling. Ooh, and Timurit calls the dead, filling up the graveyard even more. This Elspeth Nightmare is about to be a value town. Though it does have to race against, I believe that is a Woe Strider that just got thrown into the graveyard.
It's a tricky choice here for Zabricus.
There's a binding the old gods, and now there's the choice of also casting Cultivate. But getting that zombie merfolk off the battlefield is very important. And by the way, we're seeing a whole slew of Zeb McKinnon art on this battlefield. We saw that merfolk who just got thrown into the graveyard. We've got the sleeves on Zabricus's deck. And oh my goodness, have you seen the art for the new legendary merfolk god that's coming out in Modern Horizons 2?
Yeah, I think Merfolk's going to be making a comeback. A lot of fans out there of the Merfolk archetype. Very cool card. A lot of
lovers out there, yes. Oh, and hey, just like you said, here's the duress. So what do you think is the pick here?
I think you may have to go with probably the Cultivate if you want to slow down. You notice that there's only one more land, but there's a lot of great choices here. As a disclaimer, the initial instinct would be Cultivate. However, again, you have Binding, which also ramps. So a couple different ramp spells to choose. I guess it depends on what is in Ruchu's hand and what Ruchu envisions the board state might look like in a turn or two.
Oh, having to think ahead here. Ruchu really needs to plan around the cards in hand, knowing that there's removal, knowing that, her graveyard's going to be gone in a turn.
Yeah, there's just so much right now available to Zabricus. And again, that is a byproduct of how powerful Sultai is.
And we saw Heartless Act, the very cheap removal, tossed aside because, hey, you know what? Having your creatures stick onto the battlefield is huge when you're playing aggressively, and Ruchu needs to kill Zabricus's Sultai deck quickly before it gets set up, before it starts taking extra turn and casting ultimatums. And we're going to see Kroxa following up, hitting the battlefield and forcing a discard. Now, Ruchu notably played the pathway with black mana available, which means that she's going to have 2 red and 2 black and be able to use that graveyard up before it gets exiled. Now, the E2 Extinction will be able to get rid of the Kroxa, but there's still going to be a ton of value here, just using up those cards from the grave, escaping Woe Strider, maybe, probably going to be Kroxa just because of its amazing enter the battlefield ability.
Yeah, and right here, I'm seeing the kind of mindset behind Ruchu here. So you grab the Heartless Act, because the Heartless Act could have reduced the scry, could kill a Kroxa. I definitely see where this is coming from. You also now force that Eat to Extinction play now, and Eat to Extinction will consume all of the mana that is available, which will, again, you're trying to buy turns at this point against Sultai to inflict as much damage as possible. Now, even in hindsight, grabbing the Heartless Act was a really terrific play here by Ruchu.
Oh, and Timuret is taking his time calling the dead. Timuret, by the way, is the demigod from Theros in black. This horrible face-covered beast in the sculpture featured on the Timuret Calls the Dead saga. And we're seeing a Scryla top, Scryla bottom, 2 life gained. And it's so strange to see a red-black deck just like, oh yeah, I'm at actually a higher life total than I started. Just a little bit of coincidental life gain. It makes a difference when you're up against aggro decks.
Absolutely no. So now in this main 2, this is going to be critical. Is Ruchu going to force the E2 Extinction? One of the good things about forcing the E2 Extinction is you do not negate the discard here. And did you look at Zabricus's hand? There's kind of a lot going on right now with it. Forcing a discard, even a discard of the land, is not such a bad thing at this point.
Oh, yeah. Like, this E2 Extinction is the perfect response to it being an exiling spell. So, like, here is Kroxa escaping, consuming the graveyard, entering the battlefield at mighty 6/6. It's going to force a discard from Zabricus's hand, and it's going to get munched up by himself. Kroxa, featured on E2 Extinction, says, I sure am delicious. I'm a very, very tasty card.
So, would you say this is a flavor win or a flavor fail on the field? And I'm not sorry for that, y'all.
Listen, this is, as always, a very munchy cast. And I saw that was a surveil there. I'm going to keyword it. I know it doesn't say surveil, but that's totally what it is. A surveil there, keeping the Necromentia on top of the deck and discarding the Elrond's Epiphany. So the chance of an extra turn does go down, but this Necromentia is going to empty out the hand and the deck of a specific card. So what do you name, Zabricus? I saw the Crunch show up there, and I'm like, yes, name Crunch Wrangler. Now it looks like all Cruxa are going to be exiled. They are gone, and none were enhanced. There's not going to be any zombies made.
But still, though, this is getting a little close right now. Ruchu's done a great job again. That discard's playing a role. It may play a role again here this turn.
Yeah, and Zabricus did have knowledge of Ruchu's hand. Ellie did have a lot of good, quick threats. I see that Bone Crusher Giant is still up there. And the discard goes to Go Blank. And
wow.
Zabricus seeing, ooh, this cannot be simply won. Thanks to Rankle and his nasty pranks. So we're going to game 3 here, and Zabricus is rolling that mouse around in fear, like, oh, Rankle, your dang haste.
And I love how the first instinct here on this sideboard is Elder Gargaroth. Now, what was I telling you before about Elder Gargaroth and the role that it plays?
Reach.
Some folks are saying, oh, Reach needs to come out of the format. No, it doesn't. It plays such a big role here on the Gargaroth. And do you know, not necessarily here at the VML, but if you're playing, how many people forget, whether or not you're familiar with the game or new to the game, about that Reach on Elder Gargaroth? It is so relevant.
I do love me some Secret Reach. And that's an easy mulligan for Zabricus. Zabricus takes a look and says, oh, there's no lands here. I'm just going to shove this to the side. And then gets a beautiful hand with perfect Sultai mana. You got the blue, you got the black, you got the green, and it lines up perfectly for an Omen of the Sea. But, ooh, duress coming from Ruchu. What gets discarded here between the Binding and the Omen?
Yeah, you have to wonder after watching this match, is Duress the Sultai ultimatum killer that we've all been sleeping on? It's played an enormous factor in this match right now. I can't wait to see how this match unfolds.
And Zabricus now cut off from what he was planning on doing on turn 2, has no turn 3 lined up, may as well put Yorion into hand. And Ruchu already has a beater on the battlefield, a beater who can come back and back and back. It is the Skybilz Shade. This bad boy has landfall when it's in the graveyard. Yeah, that's right. You can play this any turn that you have played a land. And now the Mire Triton filling up the graveyard. And it looks to me like now there is a Croxa in the yard. The escape is imminent.
Yeah, this is the part where if you're in Ruchu's seat, you're like, oh my gosh, please do not have Extinction Event or Shadow's Verdict. Please, 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 because there's a little bit of prayer involved here when it comes to hoping that those answers aren't there. Sultai is just that powerful in some facets against Rakdos with the board wipe exiles.
Playing all the cards, and they all have even mana costs, and they're all great. And they all can be exiled at the same time. So we're going to see the Cultivator here blocking the Shade. That's going to be 3 damage on the Cultivator and 2 to face. Now, if Ruchu has something like a Bone Crusher Giant, this Cultivator is going to be gone as well.
Yeah, I love what Zabricus is doing here. There's no panic whatsoever. No sense of, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do here. Just calmly blocking with that 3/4. And that 4 toughness is so relevant. The 4 toughness, the 4 mana cost. 4 seems to be the magic number that you want to reach in terms of defeating Rakdos. So that Cultivator fits all those roles so far and can also be bounced by Yorion for that little bit of extra ramp if needed.
Value. So we've got the Cultivator, probably going to be followed up by this Binding as well. Anything that hits the battlefield is likely to be removed. And following up a Binding with a Yorion. Oh my god, the value.
Yeah, Amy's absolutely right here. The value is going to be real, and it's all about, can Ruchu continue to produce cards from hand to keep up with that value? Can that 4th mana be played so maybe you can start getting some Croxus on the field, discarding the cards as we've seen before, and we'll see maybe during this match. Discarding is one of the key strategies here to defeating Sultai Ultimatum if you are in Rakdos colors.
I love that the duress has pretty much just become an evergreen card. There's rarely been a staple or a standard where we haven't had duress available for at least most of it, because it's a great spell. It's like, oh, yeah, it's not too strong. It's no Thoughtseize. But if ever a spell deck becomes too powerful, not a creature-based deck, somebody who's running all these non-creatures, these planeswalkers, these sagas, you hit them with the duress. And here we're seeing another duress who could shut down that Binding the Old Gods. Make sure it never lands, or go for Professor Onyx. So this does mean that Binding can be cast here, or Yorion. But I love seeing the Binding's first chapter, which is destroying a non-land permanent, coming out, because then it can be blinked. Anything that Ruchu plays, if it sticks on the battlefield, it can be destroyed.
Yes, I love how Zavrikis is setting up this play with urgency, because again, you don't know how often you're going to have to discard cards. So just right away, maybe slamming the Orion, maybe if you're lucky, slamming the Sultai Ultimatum with the appropriate mana. So again, that sense of urgency is really needed here, because if any part of this plan falls apart, it's going to be really difficult for Sultai here to stabilize.
Yeah, if Ruchu has a go blank right here, it would be the best time to cast it. Hit the Yorion before it gets the blank value. Get rid of it. It turns out there's an Emergent Ultimatum in hand. Whew. Right now, Zabricus is super close to Ultimatum mana, because that Binding is going to get a forest. And if it gets blanked, it'll do it again. The Quandrix Cultivator can grab another green or blue source. But Ruchu, mulling it over, has a very hard decision to make. What does she do? I wish we could see her hand right now. I wish I knew if she had a go blank. No, it is just a Skyclave Shade. That's not going to do it. The Zagoth Triumph's a fantastic bit of ramp here.
Yeah, at this point, you play the Yorion, you get the value out of the Cultivator and the Binding, and you just await that ultimatum.
Here's a spicy, spicy card. I do not get to see this card nearly enough outside of Commander. It's the Lithoform Engine. Zabricus is saying, yeah, I could play Yorion and blink this Cultivator and blink this Binding the Old Gods and kill the Skyclave Shade again, but you know what's more cool than that? Copying my stuff.
So yeah, Lithoform Engine. I don't know if I've ever said that in the same sentence during Standard, but here we are. Really cool card to have here.
I actually forgot it was a Standard card. I was like, oh, that must have been printed in Commander Legends, even though it is a major plot point of the Zendikar Rising story. It is the whole thing. It is the MacGuffin of Zendikar Rising. Also, yeah, I just, I never see it played in Standard. Zabricus out here with the spicy brewskis. And there is another red source for Ruchu. It is time for Kroxa to hit the battlefield. Which means, unfortunately, for Zabricus, it's going to be goodbye Yorion. And we see now a little bit of Death Touch and a little bit of Ultimatum.
Yeah, there's just going to be, again, value is the key thing, especially in this Standard with this ultimatum. And again, I think we're looking at an extra turn. We're looking at some kind of Planeswalker board presence. Oh, going with the 2 walkers again.
Waka waka. What we gonna get here? Also, I love that Zabricus can actually just cleanly attack in with this 3/4. The Quandrix Cultivator does have Death Touch until end of turn. Why not? It's just there is a Kroxa there. Kroxa would still die to the Cultivator.
Yeah, when most people think of the Death Touch on the back half of Binding, we're all thinking of Finn, right? That's what the card that I thought that was intended to go with that is Finn, to try to get that Infect-esque poison counters thing going in Standard. And I can't believe poisonous counters, not Infect, but poisonous counters are in Standard right now. It's wild.
And the Shadow's verdict resolves, exiling the Croxa, the creatures in the yard. And now Tybalt gets to plus and steal a mountain. Hey, did you know that Sultai decks have red mana? Because they do now.
Yeah, I love the play here with the red mana, because now if you need a second Tybalt, which is going to do nothing but generate value at this point, now you have a backup Tybalt. I mean, we've heard of one, but what about second Tybalt?
Oh my gosh. And also the Lithiform engine can double the ability of Tybalt. Oh my god, it's almost like having 3 Tybalts.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you turn your opponent's deck against them, which is, again, quite wild here.
Gosh, I do love cards that steal. And now we're seeing 2 Bone Crusher Giants hitting the battlefield saying, oh no, I need to have both an offensive and a defensive presence, and this is the way I'm going to be able to do it. Those Bone Crusher Giants are hard to deal with because Heartless Act and other targeting removal, if it's a spell, cast from hand, targets the Bone Crusher Giant, not just the ability of something like a Binding the Old Gods, you take 2 damage upon targeting it.
This is a ridiculous amount of value and removal generated by, can we say, both decks at this point.
Yeah, but now Zabricus is swinging ahead here, and we did see the Lithiform engine there copying the ability on the stack, and we're going to see the Quandrix Cultivator stay back to help protect Tybalt. Now, notably, there is still mana being held up, which means that the Heartless Act, in an emergency, could be cast on the Bone Crusher Giant or another threat that hits the battlefield.
Yeah, speaking of threats, you still need to watch out for Wrinkle, Master of Pranks. That will just start running away with the game if you do not have a backup plan for it. I like how Zabricus is keeping the guard up right now, saying, okay, there's still stuff that can happen. And Ruchu also not panicking on the ultimatum. Props just for that alone. I can't think of the amount of times an ultimatum's been cast and that's it. The match is pretty much over. So Ruchu hanging tough here, still has a good chance here. Just need to keep up with that value that the Tybalt will be generating, along with the Lithiform engine.
And there it is. Rushu knows there's no way out from Tybalt's clutches. And the win goes to Zabricus and Sultai. Ultimatum.
Wow. All I can say is someone in the chat had said, hot Sultai. I couldn't have picked a better descriptor for what we had just seen in its own. And again, if you have forgotten, yes, Lithiform Engine is still here in Standard, and it is here to stay. It is from Zendikar Rising, that card. So yes, even after rotation, that card is still around to stay, and who knows what antics it may cause, especially when combined with Tybalt, and which will also not be rotating. So we'll see if those cards have more interactivity in the future.
Yeah, that was a rough matchup there for the Rakdos deck. But hey, a great game to start off our evening. By the way, if you're interested in following updates about the VML, maybe joining in next season, be sure to follow at VMLMTG on Twitter. That's all those letters in a row, VMLMTG. Now, before we get into the next match, we're going to have a pop quiz.
Welcome, Sonic of the Quandrix. I am your Withable Professor, and I'm going to be proctoring your pop quiz today. So rules are really easy. I ask you 3 questions, and you answer them, and I tell you if you're correct or incorrect. And then for each question you get correct, you get a point to your college. So hope you have come prepared.
Well, hopefully I have. Hopefully I should be best at the maths one.
All right. Well, question number 1: How many deans are there in Silverquill College?
I know the answer is either 2 or 3. Is the question because I know there's the flip card, which is the 2 deans, but is the main mythic is the one that I'm thinking of, and it's not. I don't think it is. I think it's only 2.
2 would be correct. There are only 2 deans. The other one is the Elder Dragon, I believe, the one you're referring to. So yeah. So question number 2, who won the last season of the VML?
That was a new winner, wasn't it?
It was a new winner.
It was a new winner. We somehow managed to prevent the infinite loop that Mighty Linguini could have made.
Indeed.
I'm going to say Hogpog.
Hogpog is correct. All right, so last question. Name a non-male past or present player in either MPL or Rivals.
If we're talking non-male MPL members, now I don't know if people watching this know this, but I am Welsh, or some would say British, and there's a non-male MPL member by the name of Autumn Burchett who lives in England.
That is
So-
correct.
Mhm.
So that is 3 questions, all correct. Congratulations. You are a credit to your college.
Thank you very much.
All right, class dismissed.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the VML. That's the Venus and Mercury League, Week 6. I'm Amy the Amazonian here with Skybilz. We're about to hop into another match. And as we do so, I want to say thank you again to the sponsors of the VML. We've got NRG, WOTC, that's Wizards of the Coast, and CFB, Channel Fireball, all the acronyms you could ever desire, making it possible. All right, so let's hop on over to our next competitors. Who could it be? Oh, it's Sonic Pika. You actually just saw them in that little pop quiz video. That was an interview with her. And what you running? It's Golgari Fin Facts. That's right, poison is back, baby.
Can I just give a shout out to Sonic Arpika here? Their use of infect into finfact is amazing. So you definitely win the pun game for today, Sonic Arpika.
Would
Love
you
it.
like a little bit more? Because I would say that she's fin it to win it. Hi, welcome to Bad Puns. I've got many of them. And I do love the choice of this deck. So if you've never seen Finn before, this is a poison counter deck. You hit face with a Finn on the battlefield using a death touching creature. Apply poison counters. Once your opponent hits 10, you win the game. Also, these cards happen to be strong in their own, so sometimes you just deal enough damage to win. I love to see it. And now let's see the competitor. We've got Jen Krutz representing Witherbloom and the Tamer World Tree. This deck is a godly powerhouse. Because it's a gods deck. It actually does use the World Tree to cheat gods from the deck onto the battlefield. Did you know it has an activated ability? Because you do now for 10 mana and the World Tree. You get to summon as many gods as you'd like from your deck straight to the battlefield. They get haste from Porphyros, they smash face, and they win the game. There's other powerful cards in here too. You've got the Prismari Command. You've got Ugin. Love to see it. Hope to see it win. And I think it's time for us to get into the game. So Skybilz, who do you think is going to win this showdown of the spice?
Well, we don't get a chance to see this much spice, so it's going to be a matter of how well can Jen's deck contain the board. So a couple of things to look out for here. Do not solely focus on Finn. This was something Sonic Arpega had told us in terms of some of the questions to be answered. Instead, pay attention to some of the life that it deducts at the beginning, and then treat the poison counters as an alternate win condition. This deck also has some mid-game to it.
Yeah, a lot of these cards just have, well, they have Death Touch stapled to otherwise pretty sweet creatures. I'm looking at you, Questing Beast. Questing Beast has no right to have all of that text. And we're going to see yet another one of these Foulmire Knights with 3 in hand. Sonic Pika has chosen to not play another Black Mana Source here and play all 3 of them out, but instead hold the 3rd as a potential card draw for next turn.
Yeah, this is a great decision here by Sonic Arpega to not overly commit to the board because, again, those Storm's Rest, they are there and they are plentiful in the deck, especially when you're up against blue. Blue draws a lot of cards, so again, you always have to anticipate that your board could be wiped at any moment in time. And yes, that does include Textbook Beast.
Ah, yes, so many lines of text. You know, there's a lot of lines of text on the Nighthawk Scavenger, too. This is a card that you see only a little bit right now. It is a 3-cost rogue that if you are playing a more expensive rogue deck, occasionally will see play for its sheer powerful abilities. It plays nicely with the other milling rogues, but it also plays great in a death touching deck. It is a fly on a lifelink and death touch it and now dead creature. And it's time for number 2. That's right. There's another scavenger, and turns out holding onto that Foulmire Knight was a great play for Sonic Pika, because now they're able to follow up with 2 Death Action creatures in 1 turn.
Yeah, I love it how Sonic Pika, again, didn't overly commit, so then that board was rebuilt immediately. It's like, what Storm's Wrath? Here is phase 2 of my board, with phase 3 now on the horizon due to that recent draw.
Yeah, and you mentioned the life gain that happens in this deck. You've got the lifelink on the Scavenger. You've got Mire Tritons gaining life. It adds up to quite a bit, and now it's time to see the return of the Nighthawk Scavenger. There was a choice there between hitting 2 of the Foulmire Knights and this Nighthawk Scavenger, but now this Nighthawk Scavenger has 2 extra counters on it. It has double Death Touch and Menace.
We were talking about generating value earlier. Even though these are both decks that you typically don't see in the most common meta in Standard, guess what? We still have the meta value, that being the Yorion that I see in the hand there. And yes, that is 2 Omen of the Sea on the field.
It's time for some skidamarinky blinky blink, maybe? No, we are actually seeing Jen holding back here and waiting to make use of these other value generating cards. There is an... Oh, yeah, there we go. Omen of the Hunt, grabbing a basic land. And maybe a command, maybe a Valakut Awakening. Oh, we're going to see Valakut Awakening. This is going to toss back any unwanted cards and draw some cards to replace them. And it looks like she does want the Yorion. She wants this huge blink value, but Alrund, with this few cards in hand, no thank you.
I did like the play as a whole there, because now you can really maximize the play here. You also get the 3rd Omen here, the Land Omen, which you don't get a chance to see Omen of the Hunt that often. And again, anticipating, well, if you're going to see Storm's Wrath from Jen's side, you're sure as heck going to see Death Touch come out of the Death Touch deck with that ram through.
And there was the ram through, and we saw it being used on the Foulmire Knight. So, of course, with the ram through, you're dealing that creature's power to a target. And because it's a creature that's actually dealing the damage, the Death Touch does apply. The lifelink would have also applied on the Scavenger, but if you're afraid that your opponent has removal, it makes sense to throw it on your less prioritized card there. Like, oh, well, if I get 2 for 1 here, at least the 2 for 1 won't be on my Scavenger.
Yeah, I want to take a moment to note, look at all of this removal that's in Jen's deck, and look at all of this pressure that Sonic Pika is still putting onto the battlefield. It's quite remarkable.
Yep, and again, Sonic Pika showing an admirable amount of restraint, knowing that there are board wipes that she might be facing, and just holding back with the ram through instead of, say, throwing down a Blight Blade. With only 1 green mana source, there are decisions to be made. And wow, Jen, you sure have ramped. You have ramped a lot. Maybe too much. Because there's a Eureka moment in hand, negate with no targets at the moment. And just like, oh, yeah, well, guess I'll draw, throw an extra land onto the battlefield, maybe clear things out. But the deck does want to ramp, because see that World Tree that's on the battlefield? Yeah, we just saw Sonic Pika hover over it like, oh, I am on a strict timer here. If she gets 11 mana, 10 plus a World Tree, oh, it's time for a lethal slew of gods. And Sonic Pika not getting another green source. Can't play Questing Beast for lethal here. And that's going to leave... Oh my gosh, Jen is at 2 mana. But hey, 2 mana is plenty. 2 mana, or 2 life is plenty. With, is that enough lands to crack the World Tree next turn?
I don't know if I've ever seen a world tree cracked in standard, but let's go. Let's see it.
No, there it is. There are already 11 lands on the battlefield. Here's going to come the 12th. This is just like icing on the cake. Lets you hold up the frostbite. And the world tree is sacrificed and the gods emerge. And these gods, for the most part, are indestructible, which means that ram through ain't doing anything here. Also, all those creatures die to frostbite, so if you try to ram through, they're gonna be gone in a blink of the eye. So we see, oh my gosh, look at this. You've got
Did you lose count?
Torolf, I can't even remember her name. Kolvari, Nylia, Essica, Alrund, and Perforos actually just in the back line, like, hey, I'm giving haste.
Sorry, I'm borrowing this from chat. There were some puns promised. It is a Godapalooza, thanks to the person in chat who had pointed that out. We appreciate that.
And this ram through is not going to do the trick, as I mentioned before. Frostbite just munching it up, and there's so much damage to be had. And it's not quite lethal because of that incidental life gain. But I really don't know what Sonic Pika can do here. These creatures can defend against a questing beast. There's nothing that enters the battlefield and immediately drains 2 life. So we're going to see just a bit of go wide, a bit of defense, hoping for the best. But when you're facing down an army of gods, you might be gone.
I don't
Nico
think
was able to do it yet. I don't think that Jen's going to be able, or that Sonic Pika is going to be able to face down Jen's gods. So let's see game 2.
Is this standard?
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, this is standard. And by the way, if you're interested in cheating out, I don't know, any creature that you want from your deck, in fact, all your creatures from your deck, may I recommend World Tree and Masquid Nexus? A delicious combo. I have used it for many stupid things. Oh goodness, beautiful indestructible creatures. Now, if that removal did land, if there was not a frostbite or a negate or anything able to counter it, I think that the devotion would have been low enough to turn Nylia and Clothes into no longer creatures there, which would have saved Sonic Pika and maybe brought lethal in a turn or 2.
This match was much closer than that looked at every standpoint. Remember that Sonic Pika would have won had that second green source been drawn for the questing beast, because again, Jen was only down to 2, and one of the most challenging aspects for Jen is damage mitigation. If you didn't know, 11 mana is very difficult to reach. So you do have to keep an eye on over the life total throughout the entire match. And also, Jen did all of that on, I believe, a single Storm's Wrath. A single out of 4.
There was only one of them drawn. I mean, more would have been even more dangerous. So Sonic Pika does now need to really bring the hurt with the Death Touch deck that she's brought. And Jen, you see in sideboarding here, is bringing those Test of Talents, really wants to defend this and feels that spells are going to be a major threat. Of course, negate, Test of Talents. These are only able to counter instants and sorceries and non-creature spells, respectively. So they're going to have limited targets.
So again, looking at some of the sideboarding decisions here, Jen knows that the field just has to be warded at all costs here. And again, one card that was very much the driving force behind that match, besides World Tour, we all know that Perforos, remember, current Perforos gives those gods haste. That is a very key feature that enables that win to be drawn so carefully, because again, 2 health left. It could even be 1 health at some point. There is a sense of urgency there.
And if you heard some loud typing on my end, that is because I was discussing Augusta and Magda's use in Dwarf/Masquid Nexus decks, which are very, 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 very fun. Now, Sonic Pika, what a start. Oh my gosh, getting the turn 1 Death Toucher into the turn 2 Finn. It's time for the poison.
Or is it?
Frostbite, Fire Prophecy. Well, it has to be Fire Prophecy here if it's going to kill Finn, but Snakeskin Veil putting a +1/+1 counter and giving Hexproof until end of turn. Oh, look at that beautiful buildup of counters. Now it comes down to Jen needs to kill at least one of these right now, or she's going to lose next turn.
Yes, again, talking about that sense of urgency from before, there is Storm's Wrath and also assorted burn spells here because, again, this is what Izzet does. This is what Teamer does. It burns things.
And to steal Codingo's joke. Ah, yes, the poison. The poison for Jen. The poison that is meant for Jen. Jen's poison. Features not enough llamas, though. And here comes Finn again. Finn it to win it. Getting up to 8 poison counters. Finn, you are a troublemaker. And Storm's Wrath. Get out of here. That is just a little too much of a threat. But guess who's back? And is going to need to be killed immediately.
I guess I spoke too soon about only seeing a single Storm's Wrath here because it looks like we may see a repeat of that. Depending. There could be a Clothes play into Frostbite here, but why take any chances with Finn on the board?
Yeah, that way you're protecting against a bit of, I don't know, extra finish because I believe there's only 2 snowlands right now. Yeah, there's only 2 snowlands, so that Frostbite just wouldn't have been able to do it. Such a shame, but a top deck Finn would be pretty rough.
Well,
oh my god! But wait, with the negate mana, this is going to get negated. And now there's no mana, and there's no answer for Finn the Second, the Fangbearer from the hand. It's poison!
Did we just see 2, we'll call them alternate win conditions in the same match in Standard? Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this match right now. Are you kidding me?
This is beautiful. And that was through not 1, but 2 Storm's Wrath. This is not, Jen was not unprepared. Jen was ready. She was like, I've got my board wipes, I've got my spot removal, I've got my counter spells, I am ready, I can handle this. And that's Finn again. What? How many times have I seen this Finn? 4 times? What? Excuse me?
It's Finfection.
Yes, the Finfection meta is a fine one indeed. Now, I can tell from the little snippet up top that Jen did have to mulligan. My guess is it was a rough mana in the opening hand, or maybe just not enough removal. And we see Sonic Pika again with the Finn in hand and a turn 1 duress to help protect the board against possible board wipes and other removal.
Well, there's a lot of great choices here on the duress. So again, duress playing a huge role tonight, if you have not realized that. We are back at the significance of the duress. It just depends now if Sonic Pika wants to choose the kind of game at the beginning or kind of going more to the mid-game. But recall, the further this goes into the mid-game, the more it's going to benefit Jen. So again, Sonic Pika thinking of the early game versus the late game.
And we're going to see Finn come down here. And Finn, on his own, is not too scary. He's very good following up other Death Touchers. But right now, he's going to swing in all alone. And maybe next turn with his buddy, the Mire Triton and the Questing Beast. But as we can see with our powerful caster vision, there's a Frostbite, a Storm's Wrath, another Storm's Wrath, and now Sonic Pika knows about the first Storm's Wrath. But what about second Storm's Wrath?
Yeah, now we did see the Castle Embereth here on the draw. That's going to play a factor for getting Sonic Pika past those board wipes. But it's a matter of how many board wipes can you get past. And now there's the Castle and the Questing Beast here to consider.
And again, a conservative play, not running out the Questing Beast, knowing that there is removal at the ready, and taking a bunch of damage to draw a card here. So goodbye, Finn. But Hello, card draw.
I approve of this play from Sonic Arpika here, just saying, okay, I don't care how much life I have to pay. These gods need to be stopped before they emerge from the deck here. Great use of that Castle Emberth. Not Castle Emberth, Castle Lockdwain. Again, we don't get to see Lockdwain as often. Emberth, we get to see him on a run. But anyways, Castle Lockdwain taking that life loss. However, it looks like it's going to benefit here as we have multiple things now to play per turn. I like it.
Yeah, and there was a Storm's Wrath, I believe, put back off of the... Oh no, there's the second Storm's Wrath. It's still there. There's the Storm's Wrath at the ready. There was the Fire Prophecy that got to throw a card back. There's still a Storm's Wrath in hand though. And Questing Beast is only a single target, but it's a target that's worth killing. Do you wait for your opponent to commit to the board just a little bit more? And it looks like the answer is yes. Jen is going to hold back and wait for another creature to hit that Storm's Wrath.
And again, great read here by Sonic Pika saying, okay, I don't want to overly commit to the board. The questing is good enough. Let's see the Storm's Wrath, and then I'll put a little bit more onto the board and even activate the Castle Lockdwain again.
Yes, the Castle Lockdwain is great, especially when you have the incidental life gain that Death Touch decks produce. We're going to see it activated again. And because Sonic Pika is playing against a deck that essentially combos into a win here, she could really just be very frivolous with that life total.
So yeah, it was important to note that Storm's Wrath is double red, so there may have been a chance that there was not enough mana to cast it the first time. In any case, this was really good timing here for Jen to cast the two Storm's Wrath when they did. Excellent timing on Jen's part. Again, maybe part of it was unintended because the double red wasn't there, but still, it seems to have worked out in Jen's favor.
And now Jen has access to all colors of mana with one more land hitting the battlefield. But she's already got the mana for this Prismari command. It's time to do some damage and probably filter some cards.
Yeah, not only that, once the command is casted, you get rid of a threat on the board. Plus, as Amy said, you do draw, then discard. So overall, pretty good turn here for Jen, containing the board.
Containing the board and finding both a blink target and a ramper. Right here we've got Omen of the Hunt.
Yes, and that Omen can be blinked, so this is pretty much double ramp here coming up.
Ooh, and a Nighthawk Scavenger. Nighthawk Scavenger, this late in the game, is going to have a lot of damage. Look at that. That is a 4/3. Flying, death touching, life linking, really does it all. And now Omen of the Hunt coming down, grabbing a land. And even though Yorion will hit the battlefield next turn unless something amazing is top decked, like, it's going to die. And not only is it going to die, like, Sonic Pika might be gaining life off this too. I love the backup ram through. Ooh, and here comes Yorion doing that blink thing.
Everyone hang on to your hats. This is going to be a very wild finish here. This is too close to call.
And there's now a creature in the graveyard, bringing Nighthawk Scavenger up to a 5. That's 6 damage. One more hit will be lethal, and anything save for an indestructible creature is going to be killed. But
Oh my gosh!
Wrath off the top. Always lucky. Always lucky. Perfect draws. Or just the most skillful deck building, knowing you have to control the board until you can do your god combo.
What a draw for Jen here. And again, Jen needs time. We were talking about this before. There is no better time than a Storm's Wrath into a Eureka moment here that we still may see these gods.
Eureka! It's a land! And I can even play it! And by the way, there are now 10 lands. One more mana source coming in untapped. And it's time for the gods to make a showing here. Yeah, we see Sonic Pika counting them out. It is 9, and then the World Tree out there right now. Just need one more land.
I am on the edge of my seat right now. I don't know which way this is going to go. It's going to go in either direction, and we are going to see, no matter what, the end of this match within the next turn or two, but I think it will be within the next turn.
And I like this double Mire Triton play here from Sonic Pika. She's making sure she's got a little bit of extra life, that there's like the ram through available, or going for, nope, just going as wide as possible. Have to defend against the gods and also threaten lethal in case there's not a land. And what is it? What did Jen draw? A land?
Oh my goodness.
Magnifique, fantastic. Here comes the World Tree, summoning the gods from the deck directly to the battlefield. They're going to have haste. About half of them are indestructible. There's not enough mana for that ram through. Oh, boy. And it's time for some defense.
I have no words for the wild turn that this match just took. Like, there were so many different angles here, and just, there's no way you're getting past those gods on the ground.
That vigilance is being super, super helpful there. So we see all of the gods getting vigilance, and that's Essica at play, by the way. They can also all tap for mana. Thanks, Essica. And Alrind is actually just like the smallest he's ever been. He's a tiny little dude here, but he did cause a draw of this Prismari command at end of turn.
Yeah, just anytime you're staring down a field of gods, you're looking and you're wondering, oh my goodness, how did this even happen? Because again, this is I need to remind you all, I'm sorry about the reminders. This is standard.
Yeah. Standard's a little funky right now, because this can happen. And there's a Castle Locktwain activation, and a very nice draw there. That ram through is going to mean another creature removed. Prismari command cannot stop the ram through here. Clothes will still be at 7 devotion, but I believe Nylea will no longer be animate after this.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up that point, Amy, because yes, that is why Essica has gone after here. That is 1 green. And again, just reducing the Nylea on the field. I believe I'm going to have to take a look and count the devotion on the field again. That might affect Clothis' status on the field as well.
Clothis, I think, is going to be seeing 7 devotion post Essica removal. Still a creature, still indestructible. And there's not a lethal path here for Sonic Pika. Now that Finn does have Menace, would need to be double blocked. You can take a trade, but you gotta stay on the defense with only 7 life here. And Clothes getting in, most likely another 2.
Yeah, once Clothis is on the field, that card is just impossible to stop. It's just this countdown, and just every single time it hits you, you feel it just that much more. It's so difficult to come back from. Also love the addition of the Ocam Adversary as well, by the way. Just wanted to bring in that piece of tech. You don't get a chance to see that card as often anymore, but really like that sideboard decision.
Yeah, when your opponent's not playing many creatures and you have the opportunity to hit face, the Ocam Adversary can be a great card draw engine for green. And here comes the swing. Jen with the gods. 3 gods among them. Alrund, Clothes, and Torolf all swinging in. And by the way, Perforos and Nylea are sitting on the back line. I don't believe there's many other creatures left in the deck, seeing as those gods are the majority of them. Almost everything else was removal. Yorion's already dead. And math is for blockers, and the blocker has 1 life left.
Yeah, stated previously now, you're on a clock against that Clothis now, so...
Yeah, and Clothis, by the way, the reason why we didn't see the Omen sacrifice to Scry pre-draw was because of Clothis. Clothis needed the devotion to stay a creature. And yes, the gods do have abilities. Nylea is able to get creatures from the top of the deck, put them into hand, and Perforos is able to cheat creatures onto the battlefield that get sacrificed at end of turn. But the gods were enough. GG, Jen Krotz taking the win there with World Tree God Tribal.
Yeah, I want to thank both Sonic Pika and Jen Krotz for one of the most entertaining matches of Standard I've seen in quite some time. Just there was so much diversity in the match, huge alternate win conditions from the World Tree and Finn. I would love to see more of this going forward. We can hope. We don't get a chance to see it as often, but I would love to see more of this. And that is some of the gameplay you get to see here on VML that you may not get to see in other tournaments, y'all.
Yeah, Venus and Mercury League, bring in the spicy brews. Why play the same thing as everything else when you can play what is the best in your heart? Also, I want to just tell people it's a secret, but we actually have a card to reveal for Modern Horizons. Yeah, that's right. We're going to be showing off a card from Modern Horizons 2 right after this break. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Venus and Mercury League. I'm Amy the Amazonian here with Skybilz, watching some spicy tournament gameplay. We are in week 6 of 7 for the round robin, and we just watched, like, the coolest match between Finn Deathtouch and God World Tree.
I'm still processing that match, if I'm being honest here. I've never seen anything quite like it. It looks like something that you may have seen during Brawl or something of that nature, but that was standard and it was so cool. And again, I want to thank both competitors. Like, GG to both of you. Thank you so much for a fun match.
Yeah, those Singleton gods definitely feeling a bit like a Brawl deck. And as I teased right before the break, we have a card reveal from Modern Horizons 2 to show you. So I hope you hung around because it's time to reveal a fantastic new card in white. Let's turn it around. It is the Thraben Watcher. You want to read it off?
Absolutely. So this is 2 white, 2/2. Flying vigilance, 2 keywords that are awesome together. Other non-token creatures you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. That's right, for an uncommon cost. You can anthem your non-token creatures and give them vigilance. This seems like an absolute threat in limited. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, white weenies. These are now the might meanies with the 1/1/1 and vigilance on all of them. Seriously, for only 4 mana. I'm like thinking of all the anthem effects, like, oh, yeah, sure. This one doesn't hit tokens, but hey, not a big problem when you're playing draft and there's not too many tokens to be worried about. This is going to be a huge card unlimited. And I also want to point everybody's eyes down to the flavor text. You have a bit of verse here. My guess is it is meant to be a hymn. This is a card from Innistrad, and it mentions the protectors of the blessed sleep. A lot of the angels see themselves as the protectors of the blessed sleep, and blessed sleep is eternal death. It is death where you are not reanimated as a zombie, where you're not in pain for the rest of your life, where you're not a vampire for all eternity. The Thraben Watcher is here to guide you to a solemn sleep.
But that's no fun. Who wouldn't want to be a vampire or a werewolf? I mean, come on, you're in the magic realm.
No, I'm good. I'm very, very good.
I do want to take this moment again. Thank you so much to Wizards of the Coast for providing this free preview card. We very much appreciate it. Y'all thinking of the VML here. We are honored to present this preview. So thank you all so much.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for this preview opportunity. But now I think it's time for us to get back to the magic. Let's take a look at the third game we'll be watching this evening between Alias B and Ink Fathom from the second class 102. All right, Allie, what have you brought tonight? Reppin' Witherbloom with Rogues.
I want to make a why did Alias choose Witherbloom type of reference, but Rogues, you know, we all seen it. We have Luris Rogues here. We have the crab, which is always no one ever thinks about to watch out for the crab. Watch out for the crab. That thing is lethal. It isn't just the innocent looking 0/3 that everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, the crab might not stab, but everything else in the deck does. The rogue package is one to be feared from a combination of M21 Eldraine and Zendikar Rising. They are rough to contend with, milling you as they hit you in the face. Now, what's the opponent running? Ink Fathom, what are you bringing to the table? It is Rakdos Sacrifice here. Cruxa, Eye Twitch, Claims. It's going to be a great one. And, of course, this does have, Sedgemoor Witch and Plum. Is that what I'm seeing in this deck?
Yes, that is a Plum the Forbidden there. So, again, Rakdos loves to sack. Why not add another sacrifice target to it? And then don't forget, it does copy itself every single time you've casted a previous spell before that. So if you go Claim the Firstborn, Village Rites, oh my goodness, all of a sudden you have all of these cards at your disposal, something that Rogues is absolutely terrified of because you will have so many threats.
Yes, and Ink Fathom, she is repping the lore hold, and let's hop into the game.
Ooh.
That is a good hand if you are opening with a Rune Crab. There's not a ton of immediate removal other than a potential sacrifice after a claim. And it is notable, with Lurrus as a companion, every single creature in Ailey's deck is hittable from Claim the Firstborn. There's not a single card that is able to escape it.
Yeah, Claim the Firstborn just is a card that is there. It is eternal. It will haunt all of your roguish nightmares. So definitely a card to look out for in this matchup.
I mean, I feel like the card that's going to be really big here is Croxa. Hey, Ink Fathom, did you know you were going to be up against a mill deck? Because that thing goes in the graveyard, you get to 4 mana, and life has gotta feel good.
Definitely here. If you are one of those folks who is like, I don't like rogues, what should I play? Well, Ink Fathom definitely meted here, because if you're a rogue player, you do not want to see any deck that takes advantage of milling the graveyard, because again, we have that added benefit of the Croxa that Amy was talking about.
Yeah, escape cards are a way to get value from your graveyard. Now, you still have to be afraid of milling out. That's actually probably a huge fear for Ink Fathom up against like a turn 1 crab. But knowing that you might end up with your stuff in the graveyard, Woe Strider as well, these escapables, hey, not a bad spot to be in. And Ailey, getting value off this crab, but really needs to play around these pretty mighty creatures. And we're actually going to see a main phased Soaring Thought Thief to discount Of One Mind. Of One Mind is a draw 2 spell that if you have a human and a non-human only costs 1 mana. And look at that, Soaring Thought Thief and Ruin Crab, friends for life.
Yeah, the other thing to draw attention to is the fact that there is no, well, that's the first red source that we've seen, I should say, from Ink Fathom so far.
Who needs red when you've only got a Woe Strider in the graveyard? 5 mana and that thing can escape. And now creatures dying will actually help Ink Fathom out a little bit by draining Ailey. And here come double triggers from the Ruin Crab. That is the might of the Fabled Passage, getting double landfalls. But ooh, I do see Ailey has a lot of very good, very quick removal. At the ready, eliminates, drown in the lock, Heartless Act.
Yeah, so right here, you have to think now if you're Ink Fathom. Okay, I was wondering about the lesson component here and how that's also going to play a role here in this match.
There are so many things to learn. Now, I didn't get a great look at Ink Fathom's sideboard, but for the most part, you can pretty much fit an answer to everything. You can get enchantment removal, creature removal, and a token generator. And iTwitch is a great source of learning. If I were to be educated by an iBat, I'd want it to be the iTwitch.
I definitely see the potential for a good pun there, Amy. But don't let this crab make the opponent crabby, because pretty soon, I'm sorry, I'm stretching there. I had to do at least one, okay? Got a quota of puns here, Amy.
I appreciate the punitude.
I'm trying here. I'm going to read the chat. The chat also has some really good takes on puns here. I think I broke Amy. I'm sorry, y'all.
I'm doing just great here. I'm like halfway torn between, all right, Skybilz is punishing me, but Ailey is going to punish this deck. If it tries to play anything, it's going to die. It's time for Drown in the Luck, Eliminate. Ooh, we've got counter spells, kill spells, ways to stop sacrificing. And now I could actually see an argument for not countering the claim, hoping that your opponent only has a village rights. So if your opponent has a village rights, the sacrifice, I believe, would still go off. There's no way to stop that. Same with plum. But I was thinking if there's a slower method of sacrifice, it would not be much of an issue. But we're actually just seeing the plum countered here. Only one part of the plum because it is countered.
Yeah, it's like counter the plum, but it's like, which one? There were so many on the stack there.
Yeah, single target counterspells just don't do it. You really need those whirlwind denials when your opponent is copying spells. And here comes another blue mana source for Ailey. We've got a pathway landing, and now the Soaring Thought Thief is doing work. And since the crab is dead, there is always the potential that it will be reanimated, brought back through the power of Academ's Awakening or Luris. And Ink Fathom, you have to say please. You can't just rudely try to kill somebody's creature.
There should be a button that comes up really quickly, and if you click the please button, it should still work. Kind of like Uno and Uno.
So I want to point out that Ailey has actually only been hit by, I believe, 2 creature attacks this game. But that Bastion of Remembrance has done serious work. And, Croxai hitting the battlefield from hand, causing... Or was that an escape? It's hard for me to see with the sheer amount of creatures that have happened during this milling.
I believe that was an escape because there was a kill spell for it. So yes.
That would be strange to kill something that has a sacrifice ability that goes on the stack. So yes, the escaped Croxa getting eliminated. And the Soaring Thought Thief is just kind of doing as it pleases, really just culling the deck. And here comes Croxa going to force a discard. Thankfully, Ailey does have a land, but unfortunately, Ailey is only at 6 life. Discarding a land here means she goes down to 3. 3 life up against a Croxa, not where you want to be.
Yeah, with the way Ink Fathom's deck is set up, Alias has established that milling is really going to be the only way to win this, which is a double-edged sword because milling also could lead to Alias's demise. So now you have to balance survival versus milling here. Luckily for Alias, this version of Rogues is able to mill a little easier than the Zareth version.
Yeah, being able to run all those crabs, reanimate them, you can get some serious militude done. But that crab's just going to be a chump blocker, I'm pretty sure here, because Ellie has to discard Drown in the Loch in order to survive Crox's attack.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how many lands are still available here. I see Drown in the Loch lighting up here, so it could be used to destroy Croxa here, but now this Occurring War kind of complicates some stuff, and for Alias, totally understandable.
And going to game 2. Really, Ink Fathom has the perfect deck to go up against Rose. This graveyard escaping, and we see Ellie is like very quickly sideboarding, like, all right, I'm taking the Clings, we're going to hit that graveyard, we're going to hit it hard, I'm getting rid of my crabs. I'm no longer on the mill game plan 100%. I need to be able to exile things. I need to be able to get things gone for good.
Yeah, I love Alias's sideboard here because Alias clearly thought, what if I run into Rakdos here? So we do see some Shades. We see some Testa Talents here. There's a lot of great cards available to Alias here. Alias just has to think about the game plan.
So what's your game plan when you're running Rogues into Rakdos?
Well, you already have to establish that is an uphill battle. So one of the best things you can do is try to out-aggro the Rakdos deck. But as established before, that's a little difficult when Claim the Firstborn always seems to be drawn when you're the person trying to be the aggressor.
Oof, and Ellie with a tough hand. Only one land there, and it's not a 2-color one. This is going to be a lot better and with a lot of flashy 1-drops. We're going to
Yes.
see some card draw put back. There's a choice between two different cards there. There's the Of One Mind and the Into the Story. Into the Story draws more, but does cost more and really needs to hit the mill threshold to be castable. But with double Thieves Guild Enforcers and a Soaring Thought Thief, like, this is a great early game for Ailey.
Yeah, you had asked before this match started, Amy, what would I want to see if I'm the Rogues player going into Rakdos? This.
Yeah,
With
one
an
drop,
enormous-
one drop, one drop.
Yes.
And look at this. Thieves Guild Enforcer sees the other Thieves Guild Enforcer, triggers itself, and then the Wind Robber. That's like one of the few rogues that does not have flash in this deck. Coming out, triggering them both. And does that hit the threshold? Yes, there are now 10 cards in the graveyard, which is more than enough to make that Thieves Guild Enforcer happy, and the Merfolk Wind Robber, able to sacrifice itself for some card draw, and Into the Story is discounted, and Soaring Thought Thief is happy because there's a whole dang pile of rogues here.
So 2 words right now to describe this field, y'all. Turn 2.
Yeah, this is turn 2. This is turn 2. Now, you don't need to get much more Rogue Mill in play. Once you hit that threshold, you've got the Death Touch and the buff on those Thieves Guild Enforcers. Same with the buff from the Soaring Thought Thief. You may as well flash out now to get the extra damage, because this is going down to the aggro. Really have to just trust in, hey, you know what? If I mill stuff, it's going to cost at least 4 mana for it to be escaped. You've got the Crux at 4. You've got the Woe Strider at 5. I just got to kill my opponent before that's even a concern.
Yeah, the key part here is trying to kill the opponent before they see either a black source or a red source. Right now, there is a lack of a red source right now. That is the biggest proponent moving Alias forward.
Oh, no. 2 pests. They sure can block and gain 1 life. I'm so scared. Ellie's got to be feeling so good this match. Like, yeah, I'm not going to kill those. Save these counter spells and kill spells for the threats that matter. And, because Ink Fathom went for a double block here. There's the choice between, hey, yeah, do I just save this? Do I save one of my rogues, or do I let it die knowing that I can bring it back later in the game? My opponent is at 7. I've got a counter spell that can hit everything in a deck. There is nothing that Ink Fathom can do next turn that will threaten me.
Yeah, this is a great read and play here by Alias, because again, claim the firstborn in the village rights is devastating. If you can deny that play, you're going to be in pretty good shape here. And again, Rogues doesn't like to tap out ever. So something to think about.
Oh no, a Woe Strider. Haha, whatever. It's gone.
Ooh.
And not only is it gone, it is exiled for good. That or the Cruxa. It looks like we're going to see Cruxa get hit. It is the bigger threat. And once again, swinging in with the Rogues. Ink Fathom down to 3 life. And the ability to exile the entire graveyard is at the ready for Ailey if she wants to. And because the opponent did not play a land, there's no chance of the escape for that Woe Strider. We're going to see a Heartless Act, hit this token, clear the way for lethal. And Ailey taking game 2.
Amy, you set up this match perfectly, because when you said, what does Rogues want to see? Pretty much everything you just witnessed there is what Rogues wants to see. So you don't want to see that red source right away because of claim. You don't want to see Croxa hit the field right away. You want to establish an early board presence. You always don't get that luxury in Rogues, but that is the one way Rogues can beat Rakdos. But again, everything has to fall into place.
Ooh, and game 2, Ink Fathom probably has a little bit of sideboarding to do, but not too much. There's not too many differences between going on the play and on the draw for this deck. And a mulligan again. Ooh, but that is some solid mana base to start the game out there. I love to see that turn 1 Thieves Guild Enforcer, the Heartless Act, the Agadeem's Awakening to bring it all back. And in case there's a turn off in the middle, hey, there's a scry land. Get some extra information. Ailey does look like she's at risk of maybe flooding out during this game, which might mean that Luris will get put to hand pretty early.
Yeah, Inkfathom's seeing a very ideal start here. You have your red source, you have your black source, and now you can just afford to sit on back and see what's going to happen.
And it's going to be Cruxa. Better put those lands to good use. You might take 3 damage by dropping them, but hey, life is a resource. You may as well use it while you got it.
Absolutely here. The one downside of this move, you have to start putting cards in the yard, but putting cards in the yard also leads to your own demise. It is the eternal struggle of rogues versus Rakdos.
Now, Inkfathom hasn't actually stuck anything to the battlefield yet. She played the Cruxa. There is now a milled, I believe there's a milled Woestrider as well. Oh, and we're seeing a consideration for a reactive play here. Do you kill your own Enforcer before it can be sacrificed? You have to assume that somebody isn't going to try claiming your creature unless they have a way to use village rights to get value out of it. So you may as well kill it off here. She's got a spare kill spell, that extra Heartless Act, and wants to deny Inkfathom board presence and good draws.
Yeah, we see a reversal roll here. Usually Rogues is the one that just kind of sits on the cards and says, okay, time is on my side. But here, time is on the side of Rakdos, as that Croaks is looking really pretty over there in the yard with no way for Alias currently to clear it.
And Ellie is under duress. That other Heartless Act being discarded. And even though there is enough mana next turn for that Agadeem's Awakening, like, that's not a perfect spot. That Castle Lochtwain is hopefully going to help close things up, but it's going to come in tapped if it gets played this turn. So Fabled Passage does allow for a little bit more to get done.
Yeah, and as you were saying earlier, Amy, I think we're going to be seeing that Luris transferred over here. This seems like a pretty good turn for it.
Yep, and actually, yeah, we are seeing the Castle Lochtwain coming down. There are no swamps on the battlefield under Ellie's control, so it is tapped. But it's going to turn into a draw engine soon, and Luris is going to be recurring some rogues. Luris is just so good. The fact that people would restrict their decks to 2 CMC or less, 2 mana value or less, that recently got changed, just for a companion, it's gotta be worth it. And it is worth it when it comes to Luris. Those permanents being reduced to only 2 or less cost doesn't hurt these super aggro decks all that much.
By the way, earlier, Amy with the read on the village rights, as we saw at the other thing, and the first thing I could think of was, oh, I told you so. There it is, see?
There it is. Had to have had it. Would have been weird otherwise.
It just goes to show
you just gotta bluff it. Yeah, be like, I'm going to steal this and attack you with it. Ooh, and we are seeing the Thieves Guild Enforcer do what it can do best. Block, die, and then come back.
One very interesting component to Inkfathom's deck that I very much have appreciated in this matchup, the pest summoning is really cool and allows for a lot of very different moves that Rakdos Sacrifice normally doesn't do. So that's really great innovation here.
Yep, pest summoning combined with Hunt for Specimens, it just spits out a lot of those pests. They're really great to sacrifice. If you don't have a Sedgemoor Witch at the ready, like, hey, this will generate your own fuel. So here comes the Thieves Guild Enforcer again. And this time it has Death Touch, which means that Cruxa is going to be in a lot of trouble if he tries to attack. So there's the choice here. Do I play the Academ's Awakening as a land, or do I hold on to it so I don't take 3 damage when I discard? And it looks like Ellie has chosen to toss that onto the battlefield, saying, I'm at 14. If Croxa attacks me, he's going to die. But he'll come back because escape is imminent. Oh, and here we're actually going to just see maximum Croxa, not even going to attack at first, just going to escape a second Croxa from the graveyard to make it so the Thieves' Guild Enforcer no longer has Death Touch. It has lost the buff. And now it's just a lowly little chump blocker. It's a race against the escape, and those Croxes can escape over and over so long as there is mana. And Luris is dead.
You made that sound like a boxing match.
It is. It's the 1-2 punch. It's the, oh yeah, I have removed my weakness, reduced your strength, gotten rid of your number 1. Good luck beating me, because it is game. Croxa attacks, deals 6 damage plus an additional 3 on the discard of the land. GG, and the win goes to Ink Fathom with her Rakdos.
Yeah, speaking of Rakdos, Uro got banned, right? We were talking about this earlier when we were pointing the finger at Simic, but then all of a sudden Croaks is like, hi, do you remember me? I am the unbanned from
2 Titans?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. They only printed 2. Apparently there was plans to have a cycle, but they felt it wasn't really going to fit in well with the set. I think it might have been a power level issue. We've only got 2. One of them's banned. The other one's still super strong. Hey, it's a 2-mana 6/6 or, a 4-mana 6/6 that actually sticks around. It's pretty dang good.
Yeah, the only way you would have been able to make Croxa more of a foil to Uro is if it nabbed a land, but I'm really happy that wasn't the case, because then we'd have 2 banned Titans instead of 1.
Oh, wouldn't that be a showing? So once again, by the way, I do want to say thank you to the sponsors of the Venus and Mercury League. I want to say thank you to NRG, to Wizards of the Coast, and to Channel Fireball for making this tournament possible and providing excellent prizes for our competitors to win. Now it's time for us to take another pop quiz.
Welcome, Ruby of Witherbloom College. It's time for your pop quiz, and I am your Witherbloom professor who will be proctoring over it today. Rules are really simple. I ask you 3 questions. You answer them correct or incorrect. For every question you answer correctly, you get a point. For not, you get a pest put in your bed. I don't know, something like that.
Oh no.
So, better answer them correctly. Question number 1. Which Strixhaven College has magic related to words?
Oh, that's Silverquill.
Correct. Question number 2. Name at least one past VML winner.
I remember her on Twitter. I don't know her actual name. Is that okay?
Depends on the at.
I think it's HOGPOG98.
Hogpog
Sure.
is correct, and that's actually, Hogpog is the name that she uses for the VML as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
Correct.
I'll take it.
Final question. Name 3 planeswalkers currently at Strixhaven.
Will Kenrith, Rowan Kenrith, and Luca.
Correct. Is that correct, actually? Is because Luca's not he's on the plane of
He's
Arcadia.
on the back side of the wolf card. There's like a legendary white wolf, and he's on the back side of it.
No, I mean, Luca is on the plane of Arcavia's. I don't know if he's actually in the college, though.
He's in the set.
All
It
right.
counts!
All right, fine. We'll take it, I guess. Call it Witherbloom favoritism, whatever it is. So that's 3 questions. You answered correctly, so 3 points to Witherbloom. So congratulations.
Yay.
You're a credit to your college, and we will not put any pests in your bed while you're sleeping tonight.
That sounds amazing. I would not like that. Pests are gross.
How dare you! Pests.
As a fellow Witherbloom student, all pests are good for are for just like killing them and drawing cards. That's it.
That's technically an acceptable answer as well. All right, well, class dismissed.
Ooh, and that was some fun pop quizzing with Ruby. Thank you to Ellie for doing that interview. Skybilz, are you ready for some more magic?
Oh, absolutely. Let's have at it. And remember, we do have our pun quota, so let's try to keep it up.
Well, this is going to be a match between Annabelius from class 104, reppin' Witherbloom. They've got Naya Tokens, which is a bit of an adventures sub-theme, bringing it to the table, getting ready to generate value, and a 1-2 punch up against Hogpog. Now, both of these players are from class 104. If you want to check out Annabelius, you can find them at AnnabeliusMTG on Twitter. Let's see what Hogpog's bringing to the table. Now, Hogpog, she is bringing, first of all, a crown and a face mask with the glasses that I'm sure are going to be fogging up, but still a style that I envy with mono white aggro. So, Skybilz, what strikes you about her statements here? Because I think we were talking about it a little bit before the games.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really great statements here made by Hogpog. My favorite, why did you choose this deck? This is a very common question asked in the VML. I net decked Hayu and deeply regret my decision. Oh my gosh, Hayu, I'm so sorry, Hayu. I'm so sorry.
Listen, I respect your deck building skills. I respect your choices and your mind. But apparently, Hogpog only did for a little bit. She was like, yeah, mono white aggro looks great. Never mind. I played it, now I don't like it. But I'm going to keep playing it. Savage!
You know what? I'm going to see it as flattery, all right? Flattery is the most sincere form of imitation here. And I would like to think Hogpog just has so much love for Hayu. Just like so much love. And it just... Oh, yeah.
It's going to be great. So Hogpog, by the way, she is a reppin' Quandrix, and you can find her on Twitter at Hogpog_98. And this aggro deck is hopefully going to be able to close out a win, beaten down in the air, because that's where the other deck falls short. So let's hop into the gameplay. Oh, and we actually just have a follow-up statement from Hayu that she also was net decking. So this deck has exchanged hands many times, mono white aggro. It has gone from person to person, a fine act. But maybe not so fine. I feel like there's not a lot of loyalty to the deck from the people running it.
I registered mono white this week. Thank you.
And how did you do?
I lost to a top deck to eliminate, and I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I really can't blame you.
Oh, it was a great match, though. Great match. Shout outs to my opponent. Very, very tight, intense match. Much love. But,
Oh, and I just want to point out that right now the portraits are flipped right here. We have Hogpog should be on the bottom side and Annabelius on the top. Just pretend that, just like flip it in your mind in case you get confused. I know we just like talked about who was running what, but I think you're all smart enough to keep track of things. So this game has started off with a Luminarch aspirant who is going to be stepped on summarily by a giant. It is a tale as old as time, truly.
I was just going to say that. You stole the words right out of my mouth. There is nothing that says standard more than a turn 2 stomp. We've all been there every single day of every single month. If a day ends in a Y, you're going to get stomped by something on turn 2. And I'm sorry as a red player, all right?
I mean, this deck, it's got adventure tokens as like its two big themes. You've got Jagantha, which means that there's no doubled up mana symbols. But really, what this deck is, hey, do you remember what's good? Eldraine. You know what hasn't rotated yet? Eldraine.
The question, what would you do if Throne rotated tomorrow? I mean, where do you think that one came from? And I love aggro. So yes, what would you do? This is a question to all the folks watching. What would you do if Throne rotated tomorrow? I would love to know.
Yes, it was probably the hardest question for our players to answer. We had given them the little interviews. You might have seen it on the player slides. And some players were like, my favorite decks aren't really impacted by Eldraine. And other players were like, I would burn my collection and I would have to build it from scratch.
Well, Amy, speaking of which, because this is relevant to the match, how about a Heart's Desire for another turn? Talk about another tale as old as time.
Ah, the beauty. I love this token. I've usually called her Rachel. She's a lovely little human. And she's also going to have trouble breaking through this wall. So there is a Redan and an Usher of the Fallen. Redan, by the way, such a great card in the current meta. Really hoses a lot of decks that are relying on snow mana or big spells.
Yeah, Redan is... it was one of those cards where you looked at it and it's like, no, Redan is amazing. Also, don't underestimate the backside of Redan. Valkyrie, that certainly has a time and place as well, especially during a matchup like this. We have some Rachel tokens that could happen, some other humans that can be cast. You also have just that reduction in damage in general, which a lot of people can forget because math is hard. A lot of people don't think so, but math can be hard with the back end.
Lots of little simple additions can be tricky. And with Valkyrie, the other side of Redan, you also have to be very careful of how Magic the Gathering Arena assigns your damage. This is a pro tip from somebody who has messed it up themselves. You need to manually ensure that the game is assigning lethal damage because it will assign what would be lethal damage before damage reduction. Yeah, so make sure you add one more if Valkyrie's on the battlefield. And, we're seeing a nice aggressive attack coming down here. So, Anna set up for value. She made sure she got down the Edgewall Innkeeper, setting up for those two big adventure cards, the Bonecrusher Giant and the Lovestruck Beast. But that's not going to happen. There will be no cards drawn because the Skyglaive Apparition is going to exile the Edgewall Innkeeper. He never existed.
That was a great play by Hogpog, holding on, waiting to see what happened after combat, and then assessing where that apparition could be. Because the power in the Naya deck comes with how wide it can go.
I totally mixed that up. I'm like, I keep trying to remember. It's Annabellius who's on the tokens, right? Oh no, Annabellius has been switched back up on top. Awesome. Sorry, I didn't realize that the purchase got reswitched.
So one thing that folks are thinking about is what is Standard about? If it's not about World Tree, and if it's not about Finfect, what is Standard about? Well, this is a very iconic setting here. We have a Faceless Haven, a Bonecrusher Giant. I mean, you can't get any more iconic Standard than this battlefield right now.
Yeah, these are all creatures that you end up seeing in the aggro world. Bonecrusher Giant, of course, fantastic. You've got that stomp value. You've got the body that can hit the floor as a 4/3. You've got a Lovestruck Beast on an adventure in exile, ready to be played. Showdown of the Skulls, unfortunately being taxed by Redan. You've got MDFC's Light Kabira Takedown. That is a two-sided spell with a land on the back. You've got a companion, Gigantha. Like, this match has it all. And of course, probably the best white card to be printed into Standard in ages. Skyglaive Apparition. This is such a fantastic card. And here we're seeing, I believe, yes, the use of the Jaspera Sentinel to play a Lovestruck Beast. There's only one green mana source on the battlefield for Annabellius, so the Lovestruck Beast needs to hit the board using the Jaspera, which means the Jaspera could not chump block Redan. Not that it would want to, it's just not an option.
Yeah, those Love-Struck Beasts are going to do work here. Unfortunately, Hogpog has drawn in excess of lands. When you're playing mono white, if you see any more than 4, every land after that is a liability unless it is a haven. So right now, Annabelius has Hogpog right where they want.
Yeah, right where they want her. And like there's a Faceless Haven. It can become a creature defensively. Next turn it can attack in. But that Love-Struck Beast is just a beast. And now that Raydan has been taken down, shot down from the sky, it's not even an issue.
So again, a great thing that Amy pointed out here, this is what you're seeing in the aggro world right now. This is a pretty good definition of it on both sides of the coin here. But
you've got, I would say, the value side up on Annabelius's deck. You've got the adventure value, you've got the showdown value. And then for Hogpog, you've got the pure beat 'em ups. You've got the like threat that grows and grows and grows. That's the Luminarch Aspirant. It puts a +1/+1 counter each of your combats onto one of your creatures, which can add up to a big attacker or a big blocker, but it's not enough to really contest with a deck that's going wider than you. Also, this is like completely unrelated, but there was just a spoiler for Modern Horizons 2, and ours was awesome. But that's a reprint of Titania, Protector of Argoth. Ooh. So for all of my fellow elemental friends, I just want to say, you're welcome. It's beautiful. You know who you are. So what's the sideboarding like? Talk me through it, Skybilz.
So right here, one of my favorite sideboard options here, Drannith Magistrate. What a better card to take on Naya Adventures than a card that says, I am going to punish you if you try to make the most out of the adventure. So one of the key parts of this matchup is going to be not only just playing Drannith Magistrate at the right time, but also being able to put 1/1/1 counter on that Magistrate. A 4 toughness is much tougher to get rid of 3. And I know about much of you be like, Sky, duh. But think about Prophecy. Think about those spells that can deal that amount of damage. Now, I don't think we're going to see it. Well, actually, we have Red Cat Melee here. So there you go. Case in point. So it may need to be 5 at this point. There's also Glass Casket here. This is quite a sideboard here for Annabelius. Well prepared for a matchup like this. It's going to be pretty tough for Hogpog. Hogpog's going to need to see that exiling right away. Apparition is going to be Hogpog's friend. Hogpog has to put on the pressure quickly while being able to exile and remove those threats. Again, if Naya goes wide, it's really difficult to come back from that board state. Some folks think of this type of matchup, your life are not those points. Those are resources. The life is the cards in the hand and the board state at all times. We should be paying attention to that as we're assessing this matchup.
Speaking of cards in hand, Hogpog having to do 2 mulligans, leaving her with only 5 cards in hand to start the game. That is a rough way to like start things off. And now, admittedly, these are 2 very good 3-drops. She has a great chance of drawing some 1 or 2 drops. She did put back a 1-drop and a 2-drop. The 1-drop being, I believe, Giant Slayer, which is kind of also a 3-drop. But yeah, not doing anything until turn 3, even on the play, can be rough because you're letting your opponent build up a board.
Yeah, right here in this matchup, you have to think of the Naya side of things. They want the match to go as long as possible because the more it goes long, the more it benefits Naya because you're assigning stuff to the board. On the other hand, if you're Hogpog, you are the aggro role here, but the more lands that it draws, and again, we're already seeing 4. That's the max amount of lands you want to see in this matchup. You know at this point, anything above 4 is liability, and you need to start doing damage. That Maul can help to further that agenda, but that can only get so far with the amount of removal that Naya does have.
So Annabelius has moved her companion into hand. They now have Gigantha available on 5 mana. There wasn't really another great play for the turn. Could have played Kabira Takedown as a land, but went for the mana value instead and is rewarded for it because with Gigantha in hand, there's going to be a 5/5 set up for 5 mana, and here comes the showdown. Now, you mentioned before, Hodgepodge did bring in the Draenith Magistrates, but, oh my god, look at those hips. You've got Rip Apart able to destroy that small of the Skyclaves or kill a creature. You've got the Clarion Spirit, the Bone Crusher Giant, and the land. Those are such good hits.
Yeah, and again, so 2 things to look out for, the board state and the hand state. Right now, the board state does favor Hogpog, but look at the amount of value that Showdown is generating right now. Like, it's just unbelievable for Annabelius here. This is going to be very difficult for Mono White to come back from, just because Mono White doesn't draw cards. That's one of the weakness. You empty your hand and you pray, which is good in some formats, and against some matchups, but for other matchups, it's a really tough uphill climb.
Yeah, the L side is able to protect one of these creatures, but it can't do everything. It's only able to protect against one color. So having multiple colors of threats on the battlefield means that the L side is either going to be a one and done piece of removal, or it's going to stop a one and done piece of removal, or it's just going to be pretty useless on the offensive. So here we're seeing Rip Apart not targeting a creature, but targeting the Maul. And because that is an artifact, the L side cannot protect it. And now there are no more flying apparitions. And Redan is the only one in the air facing off across from this 1/1 spirit token, which was generated by the Clarion Spirit and the second card being cast this turn. Now what we're seeing is a pass. So there is enough mana for the Kabira takedown. So Annabelius is waiting and hoping that Hogpog taps out. Wait a minute. Or being rewarded, because Hogpog top decked this Luminarch Aspirant. Luminarch Aspirant enters the battlefield during the start of combat, targets a creature. What is a white creature itself? What else is white? The takedown. You give protection to Redan in order to stop it being killed. You also stop the counter from being put on it. That was some big brain foresight right there from Annabelius.
Well, one key point here that I really want to point out, this is very critical for the matchup, Amy, is that all side can only protect so much. There are 3 colors at work here, and that is a very, very, very key observation that you had. There's something where if you are playing Mono White and you're relying on that protection, it's not so reliable when you're up against 3 colors there. So yeah, that's very, very, very important to this matchup.
Oof. And now the spirit token is bigger than Redan. So there were 2 +1/+1 counters from the Showdown of the Skulls put onto the little 1/1 token. And now even buffing up Redan is not going to be enough to keep it alive on an attack here, because you do have 2 spirits sitting at the ready. And we did see a land come first, followed by a Showdown of the Skulls.
Just so much value with Showdown. And what is more value with 1 Showdown, but with 2 Showdowns? Redan is literally the last line of defense here between just total domination of the board state here.
Yeah, and there is a Rip Apart at the ready. No longer any protective spells. This is a sorcery, so it could really only be used now. And I could see lots of reasons to kill this Aspirant before it puts more +1/+1 counters on Redan.
Yeah, also another important feature here that is in a Crow and Warg there as well, which can steal Redan, and without any more protection from it, can just
swing and swing and swing and force the other cards to swing. Like that poor little apparition will just have to die. And there is a little puppy. Hello there, puppy. I don't want to see you die. We did not see a double block there because of the Agroan War. Normally, I feel like, hey, yeah, I'll sacrifice my 3/3 spirit, exchange it for this very selfless savior, the dog that sacrifices itself to give indestructible. But when you know you're going to be stealing it, hey, that's mine now.
That is one big board state.
Yeah, and enough mana for another showdown. So showdown got 2 mana from the Gigantha, which really, really helped. And oh my gosh, yeah, that is going to be game. That was some fantastic work. Annabelius winning with Naya Adventure / tokens.
I mean, there's not a more Eldraine deck than Naya Showdown, in my opinion. There's just, the deck lives off of adventures. And again, with the way Showdown works, you get those 1/1 counters, which with all the easy to cast left side of the adventure, you can even maximize your value there more. Great job by both players again. Mono white, very tough deck, just can't handle that very wide board state.
Yeah, when your goal is to beat your opponent down before they can do anything, mono white's great. It's a very fast, aggressive deck. But when your opponent is also playing in the early game, when they're a bit more mid-range than you, it's going to be a struggle. And it was still a fair showing from both sides, and I love to see it happen. We saw a lot of really great matches tonight. And Skybilz, what was your favorite moment from among these games?
I have to give it to the World Tree. I just seeing all of the gods hit the board at once. Just, I have so much love for that. And of course, the honorable mention going to the opponent of that, the Finn fact, watching the poison counters take action. Just, oh my gosh.
The Finn that was reanimated, cast another Finn from hand. That was such a great game. Again, I want to thank the sponsors that made this possible. The sponsors for the Venus and Mercury League are NRG, Channel Fireball, Wizards of the Coast, and I also want to thank the production staff. Thank you to Phoebe, who has been in our ears guiding us, who made this incredible visual show for all of you, to all of the administrative team, and to you, Skybilz. Thank you for being in the booth. You did an amazing job. To the players for participating, and to all of you who are watching. You guys make it real.
Also, let's hear it for Amazonian, y'all. Guest caster here at VML. Oh my goodness, what a treat it was casting with you. Yeah. Well, actually, no, was I doing it? No, I was
yeah, we got it right the first time. Just second guessing ourselves.
My partner in crime here, putting up with all of my horrible puns. Oh my goodness, Amy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Please, y'all, go give Amy a follow. That is twitch.tv/Amazonian @COL Amazonian. Please, 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 you will not be disappointed. Big fan of her streams.
And Skybilz, where can people find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Skybilz or @Skybilz. You may also find me in the Games Done Quick crowd, as I am one of their hosts for 2 of their hot pick shows, and also I host for their charity events.
And if you don't know what Games Done Quick is, it is a speedrunning event. It is fantastic. It's for charity, and it is so much fun to watch. I tune in twice a year for their big events. I hope to attend it live once that is in person again sometime in the future. That's the dream right there. Well, thank you all so much, and get ready, because next week is the last week of the round robin for this VML season. Be ready for it, because we're going to see some serious magic.
All right, I'll be back here in the booth next week as well, so I look forward to seeing you all here on aspirant.ccg.